Hello out there, this is Illiterate. My name is Evan.
My name is Taylor. I read a book this week.
I watched a movie. This week we are covering Nomadland. It just won at the 78th Golden Globe Awards Best Motion Picture for Drama and Best Director by Chloe Zhao. She's only the second woman to do this and the first Asian to do so ever. Pretty incredible. Nomadland is it's a portrait piece. It is a character study of a woman who leaves home and travels the American West. Stars and is produced by Frances McDormand, portraying the collapse of a zip code and the wake of that trauma as people are forced to leave their homes after they no longer can make a living for themselves. It's pretty gut-wrenching stuff. It's on Hulu right now. And it's done in such a way that it is hard to understand what is truth and fiction here. So it's pretty affecting stuff. It's pretty heavy with its tone, and it never lets up, and nor should it. And what holds the whole film together are these beautiful character portrait pieces of these people who have taken and lost, and all their stories that you meet along the way, and the mosaic of people that live this lifestyle and all the reasons for every reason. There is no one, they're this, they're that. It's bizarre. So I'm really excited to delve into what is truth and what is fiction here, right. Taylor.
Yeah, of course. It's being without a home, but not being homeless. And it's interesting, at least for this Nomadland situation, where it isn't the hashtag van life scenario where people are spending $30,000 to deck out their converted Sprinter van. This is mostly elderly people that have lost their pension and their retirement and their homes in the Great Recession, lost work, have nothing, and they're over the age of 55 or 65 or what have you. And through choice or force or whatever it might be, decide I'm going to downsize, live out of a van or my SUV or an RV, but not in the tra-la-la, I've lived a great life and have made so much money.
Their culture eroded around them. Their society eroded around them. Their goals and dreams evaporated. Mm-hmm. This is seemingly one of the only options they have left.
Yeah.
This is when it comes down to basic necessity and what you have at your fingertips to get by to the next minute. And this is minute to minute down to survival. When you really look at how they live, it really is. It's a whole different set of instincts that come into play.
And some of the stats for American and non-American audience, in terms of the housing crisis, the Great Recession of 2008, etc., 1 in 6 American households put more than half of what they make into their housing or shelter for the year, which the age-old percentage is supposed to be 30%. 30, housing, food, etc. But as of the writing of this book, there are only 12 counties and 1 metro area where if you worked a full-time minimum wage job, you could afford a 1-bedroom apartment using that metric of, I spend 30% on housing.
12 counties.
Yeah. In the whole country where
where
that's equitable. So, like I said, if this is specific,
oh my God.
Yeah, this is mostly talking about the elderly as it applies to that. And then some of the van life stuff is because there's almost like young people are anticipating. It's a cool casual choice if you can get sponsored by some company to do it, or you're working from Starbucks. But it's like for this particular subset of the population, it is a hidden generational thing almost. But to answer your question, what is real, what is not, how did this get done? The book is nonfiction, written by Jessica Bruder, who's a journalist. She writes about various subcultures. She had written a book about Burning Man, things of that nature. And she teaches writing at Columbia, and she writes for, New York Times, Wired, Harper's Magazine. This particular project started out, it was a cover story for Harper's called The End of Retirement. It came out in 2014, and it was about older Americans who are working these temporary jobs with places such as Amazon because they don't have retirement, the fallout of the Great Recession, and living permanently in their RVs
on
to
this
accomplish
seasonal almost basis.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, exactly. And so that made me think about retirement. And so again, for America, the Social Security Act of 1935 went along with the Great Depression. And that required, if you're going to be a future retiree, you chip in throughout your working lives, and the government gives you a certain pension. And it was supposed to be this three-legged stool, as they said, of Social Security, private pension from the company that you worked for, and whatever you had personally invested or kept in savings. And basically, two of the three legs went away because if you were in a recession, all your assets get destroyed. You had to save less and less. And then if your employer was negligent with the 401k, it also got drained depending on what the stock market is doing. So,
Lord, yeah.
This is where you could, that kind of the end of retirement. It's like, oh, I'm never going to retire. I'm just going to have to keep working. What is the only place that's going to hire a 65-year-old worker? Oh, I'm going to be the tender of a campground, or I'm going to be a cashier at this seasonal place as I travel around, or I'm going to work at Amazon during their peak season hours. So this is this subculture and area and facet of life that Jessica is interested in. And there's actually a short film that she produced and made with this as well, with some of the people that she was interviewing.
Oh, really?
And it's called Camper Force. I found it online. You can watch it for free, but it's
Fantastic.
Like I said, specifically about this one couple and going through Amazon, because they have this program called Camper Force where they recruit RVers as seasonal labor.
Interesting.
And just another stat from the doc as it relates to the elderly. Nearly 1 in 5 Americans older than 65 is working, which is double the rate from 1986. And then...
Wow, that's faster than I would have even imagined. I was expecting you to say 1966 or 1956, I swear to God.
Yeah.
86. Wow, it happened that quick.
Yeah. And a third of households headed by people 55 plus have no pension and no retirement saved.
Oh my God.
So this is, like you said, heavy, depressing kind of stuff at the outset of this, but that's what this material is covering. So she starts writing this book, a larger piece based on this article, and hence is the book Nomadland. And she went along with these folks because she came out and saw, and did 50 different interviews and whatnot. But she was like, I can't meet these people where they are without actually living it.
Yeah.
So Jessica spent months living in a camper van over the course of 3 years, 15,000 miles of driving from coast to coast, Canada to Mexico, documenting Americans who hit the road full time because of this. And she recommended in an interview I saw a parody video of, like I said, the hashtag van life, where it's like, oh, this is, you pretend you're sort of a hippie, but you actually have no idea, like you said, the day-to-day minutia of how to survive.
Yes.
So that all happens. That's a book well regarded in 2017. Here's where the film aspect of it comes in. And then I promise we'll get to what's true, what's not here. So for the film, Frances McDormand read the book, contacted her friend Peter Spears, who also produced Call Me By Your Name.
Oh,
if you're familiar with that, also based on a book. And Frances McDormand had seen the writer at TIFF in 2017 because she was there for maybe 3 billboards or maybe something else.
I think it's 3 billboards,
Yeah. So she saw the writer, which was the previous film that Chloe Zhao had done, and said, oh, this is great. This is this. Like, she can do this. This is a intimate portrait with nature and the West and, all kinds of things. So Chloe Zhao agreed, and then she said, okay, I'll write and direct it. And this kind of stemmed from Frances McDormand was saying to her husband that when she was 45, she said, oh, at age 65, I'd love to change my name to Fern. And she said, quote, start smoking Lucky Strikes, drinking Wild Turkey, and hit the road in my RV.
Oh, man.
It was always kind of an imaginary fascination of hers to become somebody like this, not realizing, I don't think, the trauma or the ways that you use it to deal with grief or loss, or what a lot of these folks are actually going through with it. So with Chloe Zhao as the director, this is the 3rd film that she's made, and she says she hailed from the Terrence Malick school of filmmaking.
Mm-hmm.
If anybody that knows film is aware of that, very impressionistic,
ethereal, leaning into the wind, if you will.
So for the production process of this, they basically did it the same way as Jessica did it, researching the book. The filming took 5 months through 7 U.S. states. Frances McDormand, Zhao, there was a film crew of only 25 people. They all lived out of vans over the course of production.
Very cool.
Frances McDormand and David Strathairn are the only professional actors, the big players.
This is what I was most interested in
Yeah.
because it's comprised of these portraits of people who I know are not actors. So I assume that the stories I'm hearing are their stories. So then at what point is in the script is in the book? You see what I mean?
Yes. The script is fictional. Most of it is improvised as it relates to the people telling their stories. As
Mhm.
people are involved with Frances to kind of move her plot along. But Chloe Zhao realized the book is a lot of vignettes of people and what Jessica
Yes.
experienced, but you need somebody to anchor the story going through the same problems or experiencing it for the first time as the audience would.
So you take Frances McDormand's Fern character and you walk her through this narrative,
Mhm.
and with real people. It's
Yeah.
really amazing, and I was sensing this as we're going along. I was just not sure to what extent, and it
Mhm.
seems like it's almost all of it.
It's one for one.
Um,
Yeah, basically, almost the entire cast, like I said, was real people. Even using the same names, it's as if
Incredible.
this is just them in real life, and there's this pseudo fictional character named Fern that happens to be also on the same path, and that's who the camera is following.
It's absolutely wild.
Yeah.
It's teeming with life. I mean, it's
Mhm.
absolutely alive. It's real. It's truth. It's documentary. It's narrative all at once.
And that's what Chloe Zhao is known. The writer was a similar thing. She met this guy who was working in the rodeo and was going to do a piece on him, and then he got injured and
Mm,
then continued to do it. And so she wrote a fictional story, but it's him. It's basically him and his journey. And when that happened, she said, "Oh, that's the story," and used
wow.
non-actors as well for that. That was her second film that Frances saw and was like, "Oh, she knows
Wow.
exactly what she's doing with this." And
Oh
that's sort of
yes, it's
the
perfect for
genius of
that.
it, to
Yes.
be a director, to write the script and drive the narrative, but at the same time, almost a documentarian, which is what's so enrapturing to people.
It's beautiful. I mean, the way that the most I kept thinking Cassavetes in the '70s over and over again with
Hmm.
woman under the influence. Really getting on the forefront of issues. The style almost dictating this documentary aesthetic.
Yeah.
This is really exhilarating when you realize, oh my god, this is not a movie. I mean, this is
Yeah.
so much more than just a film.
Yeah.
Because they are taking a character, the Frances McDormand Fern character. I mean, they took her gesture there was, I mean, it was true that was a character that that now she gets to adorn and walk through
Hmm.
this arc with these real people with their real stories now are through this narrative. I mean, it's beautiful.
Yeah.
It's beautiful, and that's why. And when I said it never should let up in its tone because it's so real.
Yeah, it is
Why
real.
should it? Why
Yeah. It's an odd mixture that seems to work. And obviously winning a bunch of awards, the only thing to win both the highest prize at the Venice Film Festival and the Toronto Film Festival.
It's
Yeah.
a hard thing to convince people of what's really going on.
Hmm.
We talk about these things, and we talk about movements and history and present day, but it's hard to show people the history that we've lived through in this country, in particular, in the last 20 years, 30 years.
Hmm.
What is really happening to us, and so it's so hard to put your thumb on what's going on when you're in the eye of the storm. What they've managed to do here, and it's so beautiful, is to pull the truth of the moment and weave it into narrative. And
Yeah.
so they are talking about the issue lay bare with the real people and the real story.
And they had
Um,
had Jessica as a consulting producer who wrote the book and lived life for 3 years along with these folks. And she had sent Chloe a bunch of research that wasn't in the book, material on the city of Empire, premise of the film, but as a profile in the book. And basically tons and tons of introductions with all the people that Jessica knew. But the script evolved with who they cast and who was going on because they're just going along on the road as well. Producers would arrive in advance to a place that they knew they wanted to check out or explore based on somebody that they had made contact with.
yeah.
And the producers would record videos on their iPhones of people, send them back to Chloe so she could see who they were going to cast, how she could revise the script to fit these
Oh
folks.
wow.
It's such a fluid thing,
Oh my
which
god.
sounds chaotic and insane, but it also fits in with the context of the story.
Yeah.
So some of the real life folks and where they fit in. Swanky, the one gal in the film, she had been on the road for a decade, and I found a little interview with her, not really into the media or anything, so she didn't have too much to say. She was like, movies were not high on her list at all. when it comes to this stuff. When Chloe had approached her and she was like, I've never heard of Frances McDormand. I don't know any of this. She's like, I figured it'd be some little camcorder type homemade film. So she was like, sure, whatever, I'll do it. The one thing that didn't go with her that was an invented plot device is she's never had cancer. None of that
Interesting.
as it goes
Okay.
into the story. She was like, I am fiercely independent and never ask others to help me. So it was difficult to act like I needed help. She was like, that was the only 1% that was acting
Interesting.
from me, but the rest of it is me. And then she kind of has a positive sense on it, which you have to have in spades for this. But she was like, just because of this is how we're living doesn't mean we're suffering, going without, dirty, eating badly. And this is what she said. She said, for me, I am healthier now at 78 than I was at 40. I'm 60 pounds lighter, totally off all medications, never been happier or financially more secure. I'm just a lone old granny desert rat loving every day.
Well,
Yeah.
that's beautiful.
And so
why not putting? I mean, seriously, why not? Why not? I mean, I'm lucky to hear this story. To find that much happiness in wherever you are. I mean, that's all you can ask for, no matter the situation. So that's incredible.
Yeah. So there's a whole range, and then Bob Wells is another guy, and he has more of like, oh, this is the next evolution of society in a way. He's real as well. He's got a YouTube channel called Cheap RV Living, posted like super entertaining. He posts videos almost every other day, essentially, about all different things and interviewing people. He's the one who started this gathering of folks called the Rubber Tramp Rendezvous, the largest gathering of nomads in the US. He said it was super surreal when they approached him, because he's like, well, they say I'm going to be in a movie. We'll see about that. Like, he doesn't know, whatever, until he saw it actually on the screen. And he said it's mostly improvised, as we said, but when he was with Fran, they wanted him to memorize certain parts of a script as it applies to her story. He was like, that was the hardest thing. I can't memorize anything. He's like, I never got it right. They just had to use what I gave. And he said, like I said, most of his scenes were improvised, including there's a speech at the end about his son.
Oh my gosh.
Which becomes very, very integral to the story as I know it. Before the movie, he had said there were 20 people in the world that he had talked about this with. Like,
man.
Chloe, the director, didn't even know about it. And he said during one of their, rehearsal sessions, he was like, I have this thing. Do you want me to talk about this? And she said, yeah. And so he said the movie was actually very healing as a gift to kind of his son's life and his life to share. So that
he was, I mean, I was asking the question the entire time, like, is this real? Are you an actor? No, you're not. No.
Yeah.
And getting to him and getting to what he delivers is like, oh my God, this is the real thing. This is a documentary.
And it was, and it's the first time that he's ever, I mean, he's told some, but the first, just to have that openness.
Yeah.
One, he said it's, like I said, it's a testament. He said that's why a lot of us are out here recovering through a life of grief and loss. Yeah. And that's sort of where he's saying, like, the van life, those people are not chasing any sort of healing from grief. That's not that journey.
Yeah.
If anything, he said, if it's young people, it's like it's an inoculation, whether they know it or not, from the grief to come, where they can maybe sense it, or they're trying to preempt it, or it's a whole different thing. He said when he saw the film, he was bored with it, because he was like, this is just my life. Like, all the details are just real life.
Yeah.
Going to the bathroom a million times. Like, it's nothing new to me to see that on screen.
Well, then that means they did it perfectly, because that's, because that is the thing, is like, this is for people who've forgotten that this happened. This is for people who forgot about the 2008 recession. This is for people who forgot about their friends' grandparents after their, like this. There's a generation here kind of falling out, and where are they supposed to go when the dreams erode away?
Yeah.
They're here. They're still people. So this is the eluding question wandering throughout this film is like, well, what now? Well, what now?
And with the diverse array of reasons, majority, and this is maybe what the book does better. I don't know how it does it in terms of the film, but the economical aspect of it is definitely the primary driver for most people. And that's what they follow. The book primary source is Linda May, and that's who Jessica follows the longest. She's also in the film as well, but she's the main profile going through. And one of the particular sections follows her involvement in this Amazon fulfillment. Like we said, this seasonal thing where they purposefully target RVers, campers, that are living this nomadic lifestyle. And in terms of making it into the film, Frances McDormand was the one who sent a letter to some vice president of something as it relates to Amazon. So they knew exactly what they were doing, and they went right in there
Yeah.
and
Huge
filmed.
question for me, because Amazon is not presented as like a savior or like a beautiful thing. It's a very
Right.
cold, faceless machine
Yeah.
that she is in. A very different, sterile environment from the desert. But it's not present. It's like this. It is there to show how American job culture has transformed.
Yeah.
Walmart is not the leader anymore. These 65-year-old Americans that are looking for money to make ends meet, they're not signing up to go to Target and Walmart anymore. It's these types of things.
Yeah.
And it is shifted, and it's not pretty. And I was pretty shocked to see Frances McDormand walking around an Amazon fulfillment warehouse
Yeah.
as if Amazon wouldn't know that they're not there to paint them in the best light.
No, they knew.
Because
And I
it's
think,
presented as
yeah.
as a faceless monster.
Right. Well, yeah. And I think that from my understanding, what Chloe Zhao and Francis were talking about with presenting all aspects of it, it's like the other things they're doing, it's a piece of this scattered work, scraping things together lifestyle, because her working as a fry cook is equally as diminishing of a station, or at least in the book, these gals who have to work cleaning up this campground for rowdy young kids. It's like they're all part and parcel of the same thing, offering minimum wage for backbreaking work when you're over 70 years old. And I think in terms of the messaging of the book in with the film, it's like they had said there's almost an unspoken rule, because politics doesn't hardly come up at all with these folks, or in this sphere. It's almost like they have a sort of a post-political, because of the age, like they've lost faith in any system. They're outside of it all. And especially if you're living this nomadic lifestyle.
This is the result. It's
Yeah.
over. This is in game. This is this is the result. There is no talk about what we need to change. These.
Right.
This is it. This
Yeah,
is it.
You work, and then either you die or you commit suicide, which some folks also have done in this.
And there's no reason to bring it up directly in the film. They broach it momentarily towards the back half, where she is at her sister's house, and they're talking about just different paths, and they have a different spattering a social group there, and they all have a bit of a different take on it. And it's so interesting to hear these different takes of people, like we were saying, people who are not bored, but they don't even know this exists. So there's one guy who doesn't understand it at all. It's like, oh, you just chose this. Well, I don't know if I chose it, Ned. And then her sister is like, well, I think they're part of this on the forefront of this beautiful, like the pioneers, like this new American tradition. It's like, well, that's a very lofty, elitist thing to say to somebody who's been kind of cornered into living it right now, and you're talking about their life right now.
And some folks,
and these conversations are happening. This is what's happening all over the country. This is not, we're finally just bringing it into cinema so that we can say to everyone, oh, we can loudly talk about this now. Because it is happening. There is a hollowing out of the middle class. And where are these people supposed to go? And how easy it is to look down or cast aspersions or malign them in one way or the other, when the truth is everybody is so nuanced and different. There's no thumb on the scale here for anybody. The fact is, these people are living out of vans. These people this is what they had to turn to when everything else left.
Yeah. And I had a bit of a personal connection or approach to it. I'm not elderly, and I'm not pushed into that position, but I did have my whole life up till now, thus far, very recently, has been traveling, doing seasonal work, saving
all
up,
over
living,
the world.
Yeah, all over the world, living out. I had a backpack and a duffel bag as all of my possessions for the longest time. And
how long were you in Australia?
Almost a year.
How long were you in Alaska?
It was 4 months.
Wow.
Yeah, and so I've in understanding this and seeing it, there was a time as well where I was in between two jobs. I didn't have a job, and I took a extended journey where I was living out of my car for 2.5, almost 3 months.
Yeah.
And it's like I said, can't compare it all. Very different to this, but saw a lot of the same things. If you haven't, if you're reading or just watching a movie, even in that, like a lot of the situations become very, very pressing and immediate. If you're like, where am I going today? Where am I going to stay?
Where is it legal to park my car and sleep?
Yeah.
You know, where can I dispose of my trash? Where can I brush my teeth?
And it was interesting too, because in the book and some other things they bring up, like I said, this apolitical kind of situation where you do feel outside of it all. It's like I was more accustomed to going into a Love's truck stop because I'm like, oh, that's a safe place. There's lots of lights.
Right.
Nobody's going to bother me. And that was the other thing too, where they're talking about like a question that was asked of Jessica is like, why are most of these people white? Like there's hardly any diversity when it comes to race in this group.
That's fascinating.
And she's saying there maybe is a two-factor, like the camping sort of mentality attracts a white audience. But the thing that I was made very aware of in my traveling is like living in a vehicle is a very dangerous gambit for racial profiling. Like I got stopped by tons of people or knocked on the windows and being like, hey, you can't be here. It's like, I can't even imagine.
Oh my gosh.
That it's like you wouldn't even do it. So then you wonder, it's like,
100%.
where are all those folks who can't even make this decision, however difficult it would be?
Look at that mobility. So just social mobility, even in that, it's like, oh, we didn't answer any question here, but
right.
Look, why are they all white? Oh, that definitely is an idea. Maybe they're living in a different game right there. Like that's an example of exactly how hard it is to be able to put your thumb on. Like, no, this is what we're talking about. No, they can't do that because. It's fat. So
that's a whole other aspect of it. Like I said, I would never have even recognized if I hadn't been out there myself, sleeping in the in the back and all that. The last bit I wanted to get to with this is there is a parallel literarily and filmically that this is being drawn to, which I'm always interested in. And I know you are as well.
Yeah.
It is being dubbed the modern Grapes of Wrath. Do you know anything about Grapes of Wrath?
Oh, based on a book, a movie? No.
Well, there you go. So this is
you got me. Welcome to the show. This is Illiterate. My name is.
Well, here we go. 1936 is when house trailers go into mass production for the first time. There was a quote from the New York Times that said, "We are rapidly becoming a nation on wheels." And this is where we get the mobile home, the inexpensive units towed by a trailer, but then they typically stay there. Has nothing to do with Grapes of Wrath, except to say that is where the nation is kind of heading with, there's a new, similar to this where you're saying it's like, there's a new transiency, there's a new nomadic lifestyle. But this was most notable for the Dust Bowl refugees. And this is what Grapes of Wrath is about. It's about this family, the Jodes, who are migrant workers who have nothing in Oklahoma, and they're on their way to California.
Right.
And Steinbeck, similar to Jessica, was a journalist for the San Francisco News, and he was covering these migrant labor camps in California. He had a 7-article series on these Dust Bowl refugees and then wrote this book. It's all fiction.
Oh, wow.
But it's based on a lot of the situations that he had seen and his compatriots had seen covering this. And this became a novel in 1939, won the Pulitzer Prize, potentially won him the Nobel Prize.
Wow.
And then was immediately adapted into a film by John Ford in 1940, which won the Academy Award for Best Director, Best Supporting Actress, and potentially created some sort of real life action because Eleanor Roosevelt read it, went down to see these migrant labor camps, spurred congressional hearings about labor law and wage regulations and things moving on into the latter half of the century. So who knows if this is going to be something of a similar caliber, of a similar influence.
Joe Biden to go visit one of these RV parks.
Yeah,
it is the old days.
It is something like you're talking about the status of work and age discrimination, or what is happening to people that are 65 and older that don't have a family and don't have anything to support them. That's a lot of people in the U.S.
Absolutely, and the reverberation that it happened with Grapes of Wrath, that it's happening again, that almost one for one.
Yeah, another recession / depression, another
absolutely. It's
group
all
of people.
all of it. It's like the last 70 years didn't work.
Right, it's just a different thing. A journalist making a fictional account that then gets traction. Yeah,
I'm so happy that it won this weekend. I'm so happy that we're doing it now because I don't know that I would have watched the film. I didn't know anything about it really.
Yeah,
I had no idea it was so issue based. Like I really thought it was it's a character piece, and it being a transient, very cool. No clue that it's hybrid documentary. I mean, what else are you supposed to call this? It's the truth. I'm so thankful that it actually did win, and that we're sitting here talking about it now, because otherwise we probably wouldn't have. Man,
Super interesting.
all right. Well, thank you, Taylor.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you guys so much for listening. We really appreciate it. Reach out to us at ILLITERATEPod on Instagram. Let us know what you're watching, reading. So we will catch you next week.